Hey, welcome back to the Unshakeable podcast, week
6 or
I think it's
7.
Is this? No, we're a week behind, aren't we? So I don't know. Anyway, it's like in dog years, that's week 15. So,
Yep.
Ty, you're back, and we've got a special guest today. I'm super pumped about. A lot of our people know who it is because he's been here to preach. But
He's like our crazy cousin.
Crazy uncle. He's like the guy that
Crazy
shows
uncle.
up at the reunion, and you're like, oh no. Jesse DeYoung from Flatirons is with us. Give it up for Jesse. Yay. Jess.
What's up, guys?
I would say super pumped. You're joining us all the way from Denver, Colorado. You're an hour earlier than us. And so just the fact that we figured out mountain time versus central time is a big deal.
We're geniuses, okay? Like, man, so easy for us to get this done.
Okay, so just to give some context, because there's some people at Hope City, you preached not too long ago, a few months ago, but there's some people at Hope City that don't know our relationship a little bit. And so I was trying to think how long we've known each other. Gosh, it's been maybe like 15 years, maybe longer.
Yeah, 15, maybe 16 years.
16 or so.
We go back.
Yeah, we started as youth pastors at the same church, different campuses, same job, and had a blast, and were able to connect and kind of collaborate. But tell us a little bit about your journey in ministry, because your dad was a pastor. You grew up in Kentucky, and then kind of did the youth ministry thing. How'd you end up in? Give us the I don't know, 45-minute version. I'm just kidding, but give us the version of how you ended up in Colorado at Flatirons. What was that journey like?
Yeah. No, that's great. I did grow up at the church that you and I were both at. So grew up in Kentucky, and really, I was one of those high school students that knew probably sophomore year full-time ministry was the path. That's what God was calling me to do. So Bible college, youth ministry for years and years, and really, Cody, probably same as you, thought, man, I would love to retire doing this.
Yeah.
And then you're sitting down with the kid who's like, I just really need to talk about stuff. And then she starts talking about her boyfriend breaking up with her. And you're like, in your head, you're going, this doesn't matter. You're not going to remember him in 1 year. Let's just move on. And that's when you realize, like, okay, I probably shouldn't be this person's spiritual mentor and pastor.
Okay,
so,
Jesse, mine was similar because I had a guy knocking on my door who was a junior in high school, and it was like 10:30 at night. And he began crying because he realized he was not going to be able to fulfill his dream of being an Abercrombie model. And that's when I realized I needed to care more about students than I do right now in this moment.
You tell them to go to Hollister or what?
Hey, youth ministry brings with it some great stories and moments. So
it absolutely does. And so at that point was still doing ministry, but then Jim Bergen, lead pastor out here at Flatirons, called, and they were launching a campus. I was working at one of the campuses back in Kentucky. And so so we came out to launch the first campus and have been here for 14 years. And man, it's been a great run out here. Totally different than ministry back in Kentucky, but at the same time, some similarities too.
Okay. So, perfect segue, because one of the things we wanted to talk about today, which we didn't get to talk about in the message on Sunday. I mean, we talked about it a little bit, but when you get to 1 Corinthians 9, we talked Sunday a lot about like freedom in Christ and when actually limiting our freedom is a blessing. But Paul has a verse. It's in verse 22 and 23 of chapter 9, or a statement he makes. He says, I've become all things to all people so that by all possible means I might save some. I do this for the sake of the gospel, that I might share in its blessings. And we were talking about, man, we want to talk about what it looks like to be passionate about reaching lost people, which is awesome that you're jumping on this one, because not only do we love hanging with you, and it gives us a reason to see you and hear from you, but part of you going out to Flatirons was, man, this church is in a very de-churched maybe, or unchurched area, a more progressive part of the country, Boulder County, blue area, and Flatirons is kind of doing what, I mean, even across the country, when you guys got there, like, you guys were doing some stuff very unconventional, still are, but awesome just to see your heart even explode more for that. So I know that's part of what drew you out there. Obviously, you had a relationship with Jim, and you guys have been doing ministry together, but as we get into it, talk about what it looks like to reach, for people who aren't familiar with Boulder County. What's it look like to reach lost people in Boulder County? Because what our whole podcast today and encouraging our Hope City crew is, hey, the piece in this that we want to make sure we don't miss and that we're passionate about is Paul is like adamant, dogmatic about the fact that his purpose is to do whatever he has to do short of sinning to reach lost people. So, Boulder County context, you've told me some moments. I know COVID was really fun during.
They loved the church. They did not abuse any of the control of power that they had to keep churches from meeting or anything like that during COVID. No.
There are some funny stories about you guys. So you would say maybe the church isn't really tied with the city of Boulder. Is that what, or the county of Boulder? Is that what you're telling us?
You know, when we're trying to get people to follow the rules and everything, and our people have I'd say it differently if you and I were hanging out and there were no microphones, but essentially they say, hey, don't tell me what to do. That's our people. And so we're like, hey, you cannot wear masks here. They're like, we're wearing masks. And it was like, we need you to wear masks. They're like, we're not wearing masks. And so we're doing our best. We're trying to figure this whole thing out. And,
I love it because I learn a ton from you guys, honestly. And you and I have talked about this. When we first planted the church, I emailed Jim's assistant at the time and just said, hey, will you run some questions across Jim's desk for me? Your guys' heart and your vision to reach lost people, like I just really resonate with that. And I'd love to see that kind of woven into who Hope City is. But I mean, basically I was saying, can we steal some of this stuff? Yeah. Is Jim okay with that? And I loved it because Jim was like, hey, take whatever you want. You guys have always been like that. But if it's for the kingdom, that's awesome. And Jim's awesome to do that. But I mean, there was a lot of inspiration when you went out there, even as we planted Hope City, because of how you guys were reaching lost and some of the things that you guys were doing unconventionally. So
I love that because I think one of the things we navigate, Jesse, here and even in the Midwest and Missouri, I'm sure you guys feel it too, is kind of the scarcity mentality. It's kind of this idea that if like one church is doing well, the other one is losing. Man, how do you guys navigate that at Flatirons? What does that look like in your context?
Yeah, man. Partially for us, we look at the population of Denver, and it's like until our church buildings have capacity for everybody in Denver, man, like we need more churches until we've got capacity for everybody who lives in Denver.
That's good.
And we obviously feel like as a church, we have a specific, not a target, but a group of people that we just feel like God's graced us to reach. And we feel like, not being arrogant or anything like that. We just feel like we do it better than anybody else in the world, anybody else in the city. Now, there are other people that reach other people much better than we ever could. Yeah. We tried to plant down in urban Denver. And guys, if you ever want to know what an auditorium of 1,800 seats and 250 people feel like, we can tell you. And so
sounds like a
we
Broncos
just realized God has not graced us to reach. What did you say?
He said sounds like a Broncos game.
Oh wow,
that was a cheap shot. But Ty's good at that. Ty's good at that.
All right.
Hey, so you real quick. I know you've probably heard Joby say this. Joby Martin says, people want to criticize mega churches, but our city is mega lost. So in comparison to the lost people in our communities, our churches are really not proportionate. We're a small fragment of that. And so there's so much room to continue to grow.
We need all types of churches and all sizes of churches. We need house churches. We need small churches. We need churches that are portable. We need churches that are huge. Like we need all churches. And that's why we say like Flatirons is not for everybody. Yeah. We're not the ultimate church. We're not a perfect church by any means. And so we support church planting out here in Denver as well. Like we've got campuses and we look at launching, but the church planters that come out, what we saw is you'd have a lot of church planters who are passionate about church planting. They came from Dallas. They came from the South. They're like, I want to go to Denver. That's where there's a lot of lost and broken people out there. They don't know Jesus. And they get out and they didn't have a framework for what they were going to find. And so they would use church language. And this is one way that I think church people can miss the lost is we use language that's it's biblical language, but it's language you hear in church and you hear with Christians. And then you talk to somebody who didn't grow up in church and they're like, I have no idea what you're talking about. You just said I'm clothed with Christ. What does that mean? I'm trying to, we know what it means. They don't know what it means. And so we found that there needs to be a network of established churches in Colorado that partner together to help these church planners get a context for who they're reaching. But then also lost people, lost people move to Denver typically because of either work or the mountains.
Yeah.
And so on Sundays when they're not working, where do they want to go? They want to go to the mountains. And you have church planners, they're like, man, no, when I get them, they're going to want to be at church 10 hours every Sunday. They're going to be like, these mountains, these suck compared to my church services. And so these pastors, they love who they think their people will become under their teaching, but they don't love people as they are, where they are. And that's really where I feel like reaching the lost, you've got to love them where they are. You can't love who they're going to be. You got to love them right where they are, mess and all.
So Jess, when you moved out to Denver, did you see, cause you came from, a more conservative Bible Belt area, moving out to Denver, I'm sure you did. I'm asking a rhetorical question, but you saw your heart and your eyes even change in how you viewed lost people and even that approach. What are some things that you guys have done over the last several years that you would say, this is pretty unconventional, but I know you've got some stories and I want to hear those in a second, but what are some things you guys have done even as a church where you're like, man, we're pretty passionate about reaching unchurched people. I mean, at Hope City, our vision is to reach unchurched people. And so part of throwing you on the podcast was like, hey, we want to be encouraged and fired up to make sure this is part of our DNA and continues to be part of our DNA. Mm-hmm. And so we want to learn from you guys too. But what are some things that you look back over the years and like, man, we've done kind of some unique or, things that most churches may not do or would be out of the norm because we get what it looks like in our community to go after lost people.
Yeah. I'd say a couple things. Number one, it's language from the stage is a huge thing where we're just trying to figure out, will this make sense to somebody who has no context of faith, did not grow up in church? And so the songs that we sing, we're putting them through that filter. What anybody says from stage, we're going, is this accessible to somebody who doesn't have a framework? And so that's one of our filters. We've got that as a filter. Another thing is, when you change kind of the ideal person who's coming to church, and you can do that through a lot of different ways, but for us, our vision is to bring the awesome life of Christ to people living in a lost and broken world. So we say lost and broken a lot. We tell lost and broken stories a lot. Yeah. The things we celebrate are people who are very far from God. And so even our greeters, when somebody who comes up and who's rough comes to the door, and maybe this person smells like they just smashed 12 Coors Lights the night before and just woke up, probably shouldn't have drove to church, and they're stumbling in. It's like that. We know that person is going to be welcomed at Flatirons, as well as, if not better than any other church in the country. And so we want them to feel at home. And so we're not saying, hey, you can't be here, or even just hesitating there. We're welcoming them in. And then the other thing I'd say is man, we err on the side of what would make sense to a dude who does not know much about church and has some bad assumptions about it. And so when we have our men's night, we've got cigars available, and it's maybe people are like, oh, whatever connotations you have with smoking. And I'm not sure if we should, honestly, I'm like, should we do this? I don't think it's wrong. I'm like, is it the wise thing? But all we're saying is, hey, we're going to do anything short of sin to reach lost people. And I don't think smoking is a sin. And so if that's what it takes to make this guy who got invited to this conference, and it's the first time he's been at church in his entire life, but he's like, oh, these guys are smoking. They're normal guys. I do this with my normal guy friends. Yeah. We're going to try to figure that out. Yeah.
It's funny. I don't think you and I had talked about this, but at our last guys night, we've had cigars, and I was chuckling thinking, some of these guys are going to go home and they're going to be explaining to their wives that they were at church.
Yep.
And they're going to be like, no, you weren't. No, you were at the casino. Don't lie to me.
Hilarious.
But one of the things we've learned, and I don't know, like when I read this about Paul and I see his passion, one of the things we've learned is, man, there's a lot of bad things guys do and environments they put themselves in just to be known.
Yeah.
And if we could put a cigar in their hand and they're willing to open up about life, man, it feels, I mean, we had some of the most spiritual conversations that night just around fires with cigars because guys were like, hey, I think I can be me around you guys. And I've been to the Flatirons several times, and I think your guys' mindset is when people walk in and like, even as our Hope City crew's listening to this, like, I know this is going to resonate, but it's just that reminder, like when people walk in and if they've smashed, a 12-pack the night before and they walk in, they're walking into a setting where actually the people there they're expecting them. Like there's a mentality and a mind frame of like, we're praying those people show up on Sunday. And we've been in churches. I grew up in churches where it's like, if that person showed up, it was going to be a lot of gasping and whispering. And for us, it's like when that person walks through the doors, I watch our greeters. I watch your folks just gravitate towards them, almost like, yep, you're the person that we were waiting for. Yeah. And I think that's a mindset that's ingrained into our folks. And you talk about transparency and just you guys being vulnerable from stage. Like one of the things that I've noticed, like we grew up in a setting, which when we were young and in college, we were taught that the way to pastor a church is to share just enough to sound vulnerable, but not so much that your people didn't think you were, I don't know, too much of a sinner, And I think it was actually really bad advice, because what we've learned here is the more people on stage just lean into their own struggles and weaknesses, the folks sitting in the seats, it connects the stage and the seats in a way to go, hey, man, we're all in the same boat. Like this, this guy up here is not just preaching at us; like he's with us. And
that's so good, Cody.
And I know you guys work really hard at that. I've seen you do it. I've seen Jim do it. We get to share Ben a little bit. Ben's taught for several years at Flatirons, and Ben does a good job of that when he comes here and he teaches. He really shares. Just last time he was here, I was cracking up because he was talking about how cheap he was, and he bought his kids like super cheap shoes and then tried to take them hiking. By the way, for the people on this podcast that don't know your heart, I do want to share this real quick. Spent some time with Jesse on a trip. Yeah. And Jesse's a big hiker, loves to hike. And he's like, Cody, we should go up this. Was it a mountain? I felt like it was a mountain that we hiked.
It was a mountainish, hill mountain. So
that was okay. So it was a huge mountain, just to clarify. Jesse's like, come on, we're going to hike up this. And I'm like, Jesse, you don't understand. One, like the elevation, like I'm at zero elevation or whatever Missouri is.
It's the elevation.
It might be negative out here. I don't know.
And then I'm like, I'm not in shape. Like I don't hike. So he's like, no, it'll be fine. Jesse lied to me all the way up to get to the top of this. We get 20 minutes in, and I'm like, Jesse, man, I can't. Like I'm huffing, I'm puffing. He's like, no, bro, it's like 5 more minutes. And he did this like 10 times. And I get to the top and I just looked at him. I'm like, you freaking lied to me. You're not a good friend. Anyway, so Jesse's a liar. So whatever he says about reaching lost people is really good, but anything else, he just lies about.
I got your back, Jesse. Most lost people are liars. All things to all people.
There we go.
Well, I want to do this. I want to jump in a little bit to, I was thinking about how churches kind of divide themselves into, I think unintentionally, but they divide themselves into 2 camps. They divide themselves in the camp of, hey, are we just going to make sure we don't lose the people we have? So we're just going to kind of make everybody happy who's here. We're going to care about the people that we've got, or are we going to be passionate about reaching the lost? And I think what happens is you get 2 different products. If you get passionate about reaching the lost as a church, and that's in your DNA, then the people who come, they're on mission. And if you start to falter back into, man, I'm honestly, I just want to make sure our folks are getting what they need, that they're happy, that they're giving, and that our money doesn't, I don't want to say anything to upset the apple cart. If you do that, then I think you lose that DNA. And what I wanted you to do, because you guys definitely have the DNA of reaching lost people, is, man, I'd love to hear some stories. I know you've got a few stories of just people that you've encountered. And again, your context is a little bit different. We're in more of a conservative context. And so you guys were dealing with weed way before we were dealing with weed. And so we learned from you guys whether or not you can smoke weed and go to heaven. You guys had to navigate that before we did. But you got a story about maybe the Weed King. Can you tell us a little bit about him?
You're going to share the punchline right before I tell my story, Cody. I'm not going to tell it anymore. Okay.
So what about Scott? What about Scott?
Hey, I'll tell you about Calvin. Calvin walks in. He's in neck tattoos. Like he's got the works with his family, and you can tell this guy, it's been rough for him. And he walks in. He's wearing a Tom Brady jersey. He wants to get baptized after service. He's wearing a Tom Brady jersey.
Makes sense.
Obviously, we make him take it off. That cannot touch those waters, So we're like, no. So he takes that off. He's got a t-shirt on underneath, cut off. He's got 2 weed tattoos on his shoulders. And so I'm like, dang, okay, let's go. So he gets in, we baptize in hot tubs. I'm on one side, and then the other pastor's on the other side. And we do the confession of faith. And like you can tell he is genuine in his eyes. He believes all this. And I'm holding his hand, and on this knuckle, it says weed right across his knuckle. I was like, all right, this guy obviously loves weed. And then I see he's got something else on his other knuckle. I have no idea. We baptize him, hug him. He celebrates with his family. And later on in the day, I'm asking the other pastor, I was like, hey, what did he have on his other knuckle? And the pastor goes, oh, it was awesome. He had the word king tattooed on his knuckle. He's got no idea, because you put these things together. It says Weed King.
Weed King.
But the story the reason why that's so important is you think about a guy who's got tattoos everywhere, obviously rough upbringing. Yeah. And he's got weed tattooed on his knuckles. Yeah. Like that's visible. And when he goes to shake the greeter's hand, all it takes is a half-second hesitation from that greeter. Yep. Just half-second. Yeah. I mean, I feel like most churches today, there are some, but most churches today are not going to not welcome him in. Yeah. But all it takes is a half-second hesitation. People pick up on that. Yeah. And in that half-second hesitation, he's going to draw a couple conclusions in his mind, and it goes like this. I'm not welcome with that person.
Yep.
And maybe I'm not welcome at this church.
Yep.
Maybe I'm not welcome at any church. Yep. Maybe I'm not welcome with Jesus. Yep. And so it's so important that we're ready to embrace those people, welcome them. And then the other thing I would say before we wrap up is there was a woman at our church who came in, and she's telling this story about how her and her husband, they've got 2 kids. They hadn't been able to have any more kids, and they got pregnant 10 years later. And weren't planning on it, weren't ready for it, weren't financially prepared for it. And her husband tells her that if she doesn't terminate the pregnancy, that he's leaving, and she's going to have to fend for herself. So we meet together, and we're giving her, connecting her with crisis pregnancy centers. We're talking about the faith, hey, the Israelites were up against the Red Sea, and God provided a way. When we have faith, God always provides a way. This is not the end. And walking through this, she got connected with people in our church who have experience in that area. And we're discipling this lady as she's really vulnerable about this spot that she's in. And then she goes dark, and we don't see her for a week and a half later. And she comes back to church a week and a half later, and I see her, and she's off in the corner, and she just drops her head. And I walk over to her. She's sobbing. She goes, I just didn't have enough faith. And I think churches are really good welcoming lost and broken. Most churches are good at welcoming lost and broken people as long as they clean up real quick and get on the path quick and follow Jesus quick. And obviously, I'm not saying that like people, it's okay for Christians to stay completely disobedient and not in line with what God says for decades and decades and decades. But at the same time, like, man, what happens when they mess up? And what happens when they make a mistake? How we respond tells them everything about the type of a place that we are. Yeah. And so, man, for us, people are trying to follow Jesus, but it's so new to them, so foreign to them, and they mess up. For us, we're really trying to figure out how do we love those people throughout the process and not try to microwave it.
So good.
That's awesome.
Jess, we're going to let you bail here in a second because we're going to talk kind of specifically Hope City. But, dude, I just want to, man, thank you, not just as a friend, but I think you guys are in a hard area modeling well what it looks like to run after lost people. And for the and I shouldn't say every area is hard when it comes to reaching lost people, but you're in a very challenging area. And so thank you for what you guys are doing. Yeah. Man, love who you guys are. And we resonate with it. So I will see you soon. Tyler doesn't care, so he won't see you soon.
I'm looking forward to the next time we get to hang out.
But we love you, man.
Tyler. Tyler, love what you guys are doing. I'm a huge Hope City fan out here and can't wait for the next time I get to come spend some time with you guys.
We got to get it on the calendar.
Yep, let's do it.
Love you, brother.
Love you.
Talk to you later. Bye. Ty, I want to, kind of shift gears a little bit because we got a few minutes left on the podcast.
Yeah.
And we didn't necessarily want to make Jesse stay on for us while we just talked about Hope City. I wanted to hear about what they were doing. But you are our one staff member, our OG.
You're counting in that too.
Well, I do, but I don't have a choice. But you came on to Hope City before. You were pre-launch.
Yep.
So I remember seeing you at Ozark preach in preaching class, and I'm like, dude, this guy's got he's just got a gift, and knew immediately. I was like, we need this guy on the team. And so, you had some other opportunities, and I said, hey, what if we paid you less than the other opportunities? And you came and worked harder, and I think part of that was your heart for unchurched people, your heart for lost people. But as we launched and we developed this at Hope City, for those who are listening, maybe new to Hope City, our heart as a church is to be a church for unchurched people. And we've never apologized for that. There's a huge need for it. We're not Boulder County. We're not a progressive blue, very blue. We're in a conservative area of the country. I call it the Bible thread. People, call it the Bible belt, but I think it's much more transient than it used to be. But dude, you've seen some of the things we've even done as a church over the years. Part of what I've been praying for is that now that we've turned 11 years old, I'm like, we don't want to lose our heart.
Definitely.
For lost people. Like, that's why God has placed us. I like how Jesse said it. We're not everybody's church. There's churches that reach people that we can't reach, but
there's a lot of great churches around.
A lot of great churches, but we know what it is that we're about and who we're to go after. And when you think back over the last several years of just different things that we've done that were kind of outside the box. Obviously we were portable for a long time, so we didn't have a choice. We had to be outside.
We didn't have a box.
We didn't have a box. But man, what comes to mind? Just I think it's important to remember that stuff so that we don't lose who we are.
I think Jesse kind of talked about we're being very intentional with the things that we say, the language we say. Like, a lot of people don't think about that, but like from the very beginning, it's like, man, we have been very intentional about our language, intentional even from like what you wear on stage, what our worship team wears on stage. It's like, if you wear a suit to Hope City, you will actually stick out.
I had this conversation Sunday because somebody said something about how casual they are, and I'm like, man, if my grandma was alive and she saw me preaching in a hoodie, she might question my salvation. There's a big gap there.
I remember being in high school, and our youth group, like, for whatever reason, went to this like old school, very conservative church to hear this guy that we had never heard of preach. And I'm in high school, and I'm walking in, and I'm wearing a hat, and one of the ushers, one of the greeters, did the opposite of like what our ushers would do. He said, hey, you need to take your hat off. You're in the house of the Lord. And I remember walking away going, like, if I ever work at a church, like, we're not going to do that. Like, we're going to be about.
And that what's wild is that's in the text that we're actually going to be studying this next week. but there's some cultural stuff around that for sure. So we just have to understand, hey, there may be a reason they did that. We're going to reach the dude that's like, man, I don't understand the whole hat thing, and peel some of that back. We early on said we were going to call the space that we worshiped a venue and not an auditorium or a worship center. And the reason was we wanted to be able to do whatever we needed to do in there for ministry, and people not go, what, you're bringing coffee into the sanctuary? You know, and it's like, no, we're bringing coffee into the venue because on Sundays we're going to use this for worship, but then on Monday nights we're going to use it for basketball, and on Tuesday nights we're going to have a community event in here. So it's a venue in which we come into worship. And then we decided not to call our Sunday morning services. We said we're going to call them gatherings because services, you have a service for a wedding and a funeral. It just sounded like if you're not churched, a service sounds like, it sounds horrible. It sounds boring, you know? And so let's just call them gatherings, and we call them gatherings and we call it a venue. So we do some of that to peel back. It's not for any other reason than like some of the stuff in church world doesn't make sense to unchurched people. And we want to make as much sense as, like, remove as many barriers as possible. Do you remember our first Light Up the City?
I do.
So
this is a long time ago.
The first time we did it, the whole idea, we had a car show, and the whole idea was, man, we know that guys like cars and blowing stuff up. So we're going to do cars and fireworks.
We're going to do both.
And it was a sketchy, it was a sketchy fireworks show.
It was. Fireworks may have tipped over at one point.
We bought them all over the counter, and they were not commercial fireworks. And we just had guys out there. A couple of our guys were out there with lighters and fire extinguishers, and they were just shooting everywhere. And people were, I don't know. I don't even know if it was legal, but it worked. And and we had a ton of people show up because, man, they're like, oh, this is different. You know? So I think I look at some of that, and I'm like, you know, as we grow larger, I mean, you are leading a ministry right now whose our heart for the church is displayed through our City Life ministry. In other words, we want to create an environment where when people come onto the parking lot and walk into the doors, they know, man, we have been waiting for you. And they're like, but I'm drug out. I've been, you know, I've been doing everything but godly stuff. And when they walk in the doors, and I just want to encourage our people, and when they walk in the doors, they're being embraced. They're not being stiff-armed like, hey, you don't belong here. And so I know you guys have a heart for this, but you're seeing it, you're passionate about it. How's your heart? Because I mean, you've been in this now since the beginning. How's your heart for Hope City continue to just churn for lost people?
I think I learned early on the church, like what's happening at Hope City is much bigger than me personally. And, you know, I early on, like, it was like my first, when I was an intern, it was like, all right, I'm doing student ministry. And I was like, God put me on this earth to do student ministry. And then we had the conversation about what would it look like for me to step into kids ministry. And I never told you this, but when I was in high school, I hated kids. I was terrified. I'm like, you hold me a baby, I'm going to sweat. I'm not know what I'm doing. And the conversation was, man, if you did this, we actually think it would help our church as a whole move forward and it would help us keep further in the kingdom. And at that moment it was, okay, this is a lot bigger than me. And so over the course of time, it's always been, all right, whatever our church needs, if I feel like I can step into that, I want to do my very best to do that, leave it all out on the field. And now I've gone from, you know, student ministry, kids ministry, City Life, done some online stuff. I mean, really whatever it is, because it's bigger than me. It's bigger than one. The kingdom of God is bigger than any one person.
So we do have we talk about this as staff. We do have a bit of a scarcity mentality here that if one church does well, that's going to hurt another church and so forth. And one of the things I've learned is there are a lot of people in our community who have no context or reference of church and Jesus. They just don't. And so, you know, we tend to worry, well, man, what if we reach everybody? You know, is there going to be anybody to reach? I'm telling you, there are people that walk in our doors every week with a zero church context. They're like, man, I've never been to church.
Met a girl this summer. It was like, she was like a mid-20s, never stepped foot into church, and neither had her mom.
Some of them are transplants to this community, but some of them have grown up in this community, and they're like, I've never been to church. And so for us to think that this is just an overly churched area and people are just kind of like hanging out there, no, it's not true. There are a lot of unchurched people. And I was thinking about this in terms of even Paul, when he in Acts, when he goes to the Areopagus and he's on Mars Hill and he begins to engage people who are not of faith, obviously, and just some of the things that he does to connect with them and reach them. And I think growing up, we were always waiting for a moment, like an invitation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like it was the service was going to come to a close, and then the preacher was going to say, "Hey, do you know if you want to receive Christ, you know, raise your hand, accept Him as your Lord and Savior." Yep. And I'm not saying that's wrong at all. And I think there's probably still a time and place to do that periodically. But a lot of people are more interested in a conversation. They've got questions.
Yep.
And so if we create an environment that allows them to ask questions, you know, one of the things that Jesse said is people are going to come in, man, what a statement. Like when he said people are going to come in and then they're going to want to, okay, if I haven't got it cleaned up, but I'm still screwing up, are you still going to love me?
Yeah.
Okay, that's a totally different conversation because it's easy to love people if you believe they're going to change.
Yep.
It's hard to love people when they're not changing.
Yep.
And so one of the things we've wrestled with even is going, man, how do we continue to be a church that reaches lost people, but then helps them on a journey to find healing and hope and salvation?
Yep.
Because, I mean, there's nothing worse than seeing somebody just hurting and in their mess. But one of the ways we've done this, and this is good for everybody listening to the podcast, our Hope City crew to know, is we don't believe that it's healthy for us to monitor and police behaviors.
Yep.
We want to be a place where people come in and let the Holy Spirit move, let the Holy Spirit do the work of convicting and changing. And I think when Paul says, I'm going to do whatever I can, he's saying, man, I think if people encounter Jesus, it's going to be a game changer.
Yeah.
And so how do I not get in the way of that? And in that, I think we begin to reshape our thinking to go, oh, well, our job isn't to just walk around and make sure everybody's behaving. Yep. Now, I grew up in a church like that. Like they would tell you, like it was like, listen, we're not sure we trust the Holy Spirit, so we'll make sure that you hear from us.
You take your hat off in this church. Yeah.
And I get it. You know, some of that was for different reasons. You know, maybe it was like a respect. Like I was not allowed to run in church. You know, I mean, we got kids running everywhere, and so there's a different time and place for different things. But I think part of what we realized is there's some families and there's some people that think, man, they say this. If I walk into the church, hell's going to freeze over.
Yep.
And we're like,
the church is going to fall down.
The church is going to cave in. Yep. And I'm like, test it. Like try us. Try it. See if you can walk in the doors and not experience a saving God and a merciful, gracious God. And a big reason is because we've experienced it in our own lives. So if we ever get to a place where what's fascinating about Paul is Paul came out of a super legalistic Jewish faith in which there was very clear wrongs and rights. And he's saying, that did not work in reaching people for Jesus. What works is meeting them where they're at and in their mess.
It's all relational. I mean, you think about why does Light Up the City work every year? It's like, we're not doing anything special that we haven't done 10 years ago. It's that we've created a culture where we're just going, hey, this is an opportunity. If you've got people that you're in relationship with, that you have a heart for, that need to start following Jesus, here's an opportunity to just leverage that relationship and get them to step foot on the church property.
Well, in Starting Point, you oversee Starting Point now. And in Starting Point, one of the things I'll say when I pop in is I'm like, hey, if you're passionate about reaching unchurched people, or if you're lost and you're passionate about a church that cares about you, you're going to love it here. If you're not passionate about reaching lost people, you're not going to stick around. Because some of the stuff we do, if you're just wanting to create a country club for Christians, it's not going to make sense. It's like, well, you're doing things that aren't catering to Christians, and we're like, exactly, because we want to be on mission. And so for us, we see Sundays as a launching pad, a place for us to rally so that we can go out in the week and reach our coworkers and classmates and family and friends.
And in Starting Point, I always kind of use this analogy of like volleyball, because you're like, man, what happens after every point? Whether you score or you get scored on, the whole team comes back together. They encourage each other. They say, let's get back out. It's like, church is not our mission field. It's the place where we come back and we get the wounds patched up. We encourage each other. We're challenged, and then we go back out to the mission field. You know?
Well, it's awesome. I mean, we see week after week, tons of people who are filling out cards saying, man, it's my first time. And by far, we ask them, how'd you hear about Hope City? By far, it's from a friend. And they'll list their friend's name. And so I want to encourage our folks, man, don't lose sight of the mission. Like I love Paul's passion. He's like, I'm going to do whatever I can. Why? Because he knew that hell was at stake and heaven was in sight. And he's like, I don't want people in hell, and I want people to know the hope of heaven. And he lived his life recklessly
Yeah.
going after folks. And so that's who we are as a church. That's who we want to be.
Come on.
Man, there's a lot in this 1 Corinthians series. We're going to keep at it.
Love
Man,
it.
what a great week.
Our friend Ben's in town this week.
Our friend Ben's in town. So, and we'll see everybody next week.
Love it.
All right.